It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Joining us on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington to get into what's going on in the NBA right now, we've got Jerald Hoover, play-by-play writer, doing NBA coverage with Pure Sports New York, a best-selling author of the Hero Book series, and an adjunct professor at LIU Sports Management. Jerry, welcome, and how do you do it all?
It's funny. Well, thank you for having me, Renee. I really appreciate it. I always say there's 24 hours in a day, and so you have to make the most of it. And I think out of the 24, if I'm not mistaken, if my math is right, they say it's 86,400 seconds. If you look at it that way, then you kind of say, well, you have plenty of time to do everything you want to do on a daily basis.
There you go. I like it. All right, let's get right into what's going on across the NBA. So starting with the rookies, we've seen some rookies that have come right into the league, made their presence known early, Ja Morant being one of them that sticks out in my head. You know, what's your take on the way these rookies have transitioned into the game and been able to step right into it so seamlessly, it almost looks like?
You know, it's funny. I was one of those that really didn't like the one and done. Well, I'm more nervous about the high school kids than anything else. And I was a little nervous about the one and done because my thinking is, I guess as an educator and as a parent, I don't want these kids to come into the league, flame out, and then with 2 or 3 years later, they got jobs and stop behind the 8 ball. I think that was the thing that I was more concerned with, and that's probably parent and me. But looking at these guys, the way they're playing, it's incredible. I mean, the rookies are one thing, but even the second-year players, like the Doncic and the Trae Youngs of the world, I mean, these guys are coming in and just throwing up bombs. But these rookies, it seems as if the AAU circuit got a lot smarter because if you think about this, a few years ago, I think in the lottery, we had more foreign-born players that was getting picked in the lottery. And I think one year, the first round, it may have been, say, out of 30 teams, it might have been maybe 8 or 9 players that were American-born, but everybody else was foreign imports. Because I remember at one point, the basketball play of American-born players had dwindled down to like really second class almost. And I think what happened was word trickled down to these AAU teams and these high school teams. Listen, this is how you better play the game because if not, certain things are going to happen. And if you notice, since maybe 2014, 2015, the play of rookies coming in has been without question. But I'm going to tell you what makes things hard. What makes things hard. And I've always watched this. The NBA draft is such a crapshoot that a person can be picked number 1, and really that rumored number 1, like Markel, for instance. If you do that draft again, he'd probably be a second rounder, unfortunately, because of the mental use and everything else. But even from a skill level, he's not better than Tatum.
Right.
And Tatum went 3rd, so it's almost like pick your need and go from there. So in other words, you can't always say. Remember, it always be a thing where it was, well, we can't pick this guy this high. I mean, why not? If that's what you want. So people either trade down, or hope someone picks somewhere else and see if the person falls down. But I'm like, if that person fits your system, why wouldn't you take him? Because at the end of the day, you still don't know how they're going to fare as rookies because it's a crapshoot. But these guys, Ja Morant, R.J. Barrett, and so forth and so on, at 19 and 20 years old, they're playing like they belong.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And that always gets me too. Like if, a lot of times in the draft, like don't overthink things. I mean this past draft was a little different. Everyone knew who Zion Williamson was going to go first, but
right.
There's always that question of like the number 1 draft pick doesn't always, or not the question. There's always the issue of how the number 1 draft pick and the top draft picks bear out. And a lot of times we do see players that have gone, you bring up Tatum as one of them, Jason Tatum as one of them, that were not the number 1 draft pick or number 2, maybe lower down in the draft, or even those second-round pick guys that nobody even was thinking about, and they end up being a top player. They end up having a better career than one of those top first-round picks.
Because they're better prepared. There's no pressure because of being a top pick. And sometimes they'll be a junior, you know what I mean, where they're not one and done guys, but they're still like 21 years old, so they're still they're still babies, for goodness sake. And they're just better, and the system it fits them. It just fits them. And you see teams like the San Antonios of the world that are expert at that, but finding gems way down in the 20s on the second round, or even sometimes even undrafted, and they come in like gangbusters. Now look at the kid. Look at the kid on Nunn down in Miami, undrafted. Look at what he's doing with Tyler Hero down in Miami. Now think about this. Have the draft again. You tell me he wouldn't be a lottery pick.
Yeah.
He's left-handed. He kind of reminds you of Avery Johnson, but he's a better basketball player than Avery Johnson is. But he has that left-handed savviness that Avery had, but better hops and a better shot. but he has all the other stuff, and he looks like a guy that just is a workhorse. But again, they find this guy undrafted. You know what I mean? And same thing with the Knicks, the kid with Alonzo Trier. That was a little because he came from Arizona, so he was a known commodity. But the Nunn kid, Scooty, I mean, who is this guy? But all of a sudden, Miami Washington, they saw him, they said, oh, we're going to pick him. And all of a sudden, he's playing major minutes, starting as well. And he's not going to be rookie of the year probably, but he's going to be an all-rookie selection. And so it's I'm with you on you have to so stop overthinking and get what you need, and stop worrying about the beauty contest. And now, let's being number 1. I love that kid. I think he's a special talent. I think he's a special person. From just seeing him reacting, interacting with what have you. But it bothers me that every time they big spot, for some reason something happens. It gets weird. Like for instance, Obama and everyone was going to the Duke North Carolina game. He blew the snip out. Then everyone was watching him play summer league, and he bumps his knee and he plays 9 minutes. Then everybody was hyped for him to play for the with the season. Something happens with his knee during the season, 6 to 8 weeks. It's almost like is this kid is he really going to be able to play and really dominate to what we see, or is it always going to be something that happens that's going to hurt his career? And that's the thing that I really don't want to happen, because injuries can because they can become rashful. They can come in abundance until you get past a certain point. But you remember what happened? You remember what happened to Stephen Curry? People see Stephen Curry now, but they forget that Golden State had all but given up on him. And they gave him a contract of $44 million. I mean, not that we can't use $44 million, right? But they gave him really a bargain basement contract because they didn't trust his ankles. And it was like one injury after another until he got to a certain point to where he got past a certain threshold, and then he was able to do what he was doing. Now, he got injured this year, but that was more flukish as opposed to it being sort of a common thing that we were so used to seeing.
Yeah, the injuries are always a question, because you look at players like Zion Williamson, who, as you mentioned, between last year when he was in college and his sneaker blew out, the summer league when he got hurt, the start of the season, it's like when players are habitually getting hurt like that, it doesn't matter how talented they are if they can't stay on the court. As blunt and basic as that seems, and we have seen so many players over the years, that have suffered injuries and it has set them back from their career to keep them what they could have been, what they were projected to be. Like a Derrick Rose, who is still bouncing back from injuries.
Absolutely.
Gordon Hayward just got injured again. Some of these players, once you have one injury and now you're playing catch up and you're trying to rehab and you're trying to get better, and it might not even be the same type of injury. You look at a Gordon Hayward, a hand injury versus that awful ankle injury that he had. Those things, you have to keep in mind, so also when you're looking at rookies, second-year guys, draft,
yep.
you know, it also has to be that question of longevity. Some of these players that are a little younger, they are still growing into their bodies when you're 18, 19 years old. You're still figuring out your you know, maybe you shot up and you grew X amount of inches, and now you're 7 feet tall, 6'9", whatever it may be. You still got to get adjusted to your body. So now you're getting adjusted to your body at the highest level when you're under a lot of pressure versus some of these guys like Nunn, who you mentioned, who's 24 years old, who playing at Illinois had more time to kind of figure himself out. And maybe now as he steps into the league, now the adjustment isn't all of these things. It's just adjusting to the change of the game, not also figuring out your regimen, your diet, how you can stay healthy, how you can, you know, there's just a lot of things. And I think that also is something that a lot of times we overlook, even Markel Fultz. Look how long it took him to finally get on the court. Now he's playing you know?
And a lot of his problem was mental. Because but we became physical.
19.
Yeah. See, that was my point. I said before, it done scares me because you know a lot of these guys aren't as prepared as they think they are to play this game. You know, and so when you're pushed to be the best or you're pushed as the best when you're in the 8th grade, it's kind of hard to live up to that when you're dealing with different levels. You know what I mean? Now, it's interesting enough what's happening with the Cole Anthonys and LeBron's kids and Pippen's kids and Shaq's kids and so forth. They had fathers that were in the league already, so they can probably grandfather certain things to them. Dwayne Wade's son is another one.
Right.
So they're probably things that they can either shield them away from or better prepare them for to where they can bypass a lot of that stuff that a normal kid, if you will, wouldn't have that privilege because maybe economics, again, they're going to be the next best thing since 8th grade, so they're looking at one and done, so they're already counting paychecks because, how they're going to take care of their family and so forth and so on. But again, not being fully, really able to deal with the regular NBA, the demands of it, the physical toll it takes. I mean, being a professional athlete, people don't realize how serious of a job that is. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. If you take the 15th man on any bench and they're in NBA shape, and you put them in any top league outside of the NBA in terms of summer leagues and so forth, you can count them for 40 on any given night. And they'll get four. Look, give you an example. Patrick Beverly, who's not known as a scorer in the NBA, if he was to come to Rucker Park or something like that, he's getting 50 because he wants to. You know what I mean? Right. He'll get 25 by half. But the demand that it takes on their body, to do the things that they do is not something that you can take lightly. And you see a lot of former players, especially the older guys, that have to get knee replacements, hip replacements, all kinds of stuff that have to do because of the NBA placed on their bodies, and they wasn't able to to deal with it on certain levels as they got older. Arthritis and everything. Right. It's a serious thing.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder when you talk about the concerns over the one and done rule. Even having these guys that are coming into the league at 19 years old, and you're jumping right into playing. I mean, you look at how many games in the 86-game schedule, how many games they're playing in a week. I look at, like this week, for instance, some of these teams are playing Saturday, they play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. That's 5 games. Yeah. 5 games, I do my math here, in a week. When do you have time to rest? When do you have time to ice? When do you have time to heal? And then on top of that, you look at when you talk about players that are supporting their families and are not as fortunate as some of the players, like a LeBron James' son or a D. Wade's son that is projected to also go to the league. When you look at the money, now you're trying to push through those injuries because you want to make sure that you're not seen as a guy that's always hurt. You want to make sure you're getting the best salary possible. You're getting that contract deal that you need to support your family. So then you're putting aside the pain you're feeling because you're like, let me just get through this. And next thing you know, that small little, bruise or that small little injury turns into something more. So But Paul George, speaking of, you talk about Patrick Beverly, we talk about injuries. Looking at Paul George, who's having a tremendous season with the Clippers so far, as he just gets back into it, came right back, picked up stronger than he left off. what have you seen from his impact in LA so far, so soon?
The only drawback was that they only won one game out of the two. But for him to score 70 points like that, and he's like, he did both of them, I believe, in less than 30 minutes. But I know he had he had 37 last game in 20 minutes, something like that. And I'm wondering if, because Doc Rivers is a sly fox. I'm wondering if they gave the load management stuff to Kawhi Leonard for these two games. But I'm almost wondering if they did that so that Paul can sort of like have free reign and get off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
To get the bugs off without having to defer. And then tonight they're playing together against the Thunder. But I think the two of those guys are going to be. I mean, they're going to be. I mean, well, not the two of them. Just it's going to be Beverly, Kawhi, Paul, and Montez. I mean, as far as Montez is more of a big man, even though he's only 6'6", 6'7". But the perimeter defense that these guys are going to play, even Magruder, those guys can play defense too. The Williams kid, I believe, the Robinson kid. So defensively, these guys are going to be monsters, man. And Zubac is a decent big man. So they're going to be something special. And be honest with you, I didn't realize Paul George. I mean, I've watched him his whole career. But I didn't realize he was that fluent of an offensive player until I really saw him the other night. And mind you, what he did with the Thunder was eye-opening as well, because he became a great three-point shooter with them. But watching him dropping 37 in 20 minutes and then 33 not playing all year, I'm like, okay. And let's be honest, he's still playing against pros. All right, so I don't care what team he's playing against. He's still playing against certified NBA players that get a check every 1st and the 15th. And it's amazing, man. I mean, what he did in these 2 days is something. But if you was to give Doc Truth Serum, I'm almost sure that they arranged for Kawhi to sit out a couple of games so that Paul can sort of just get off the schneid to see where he is. And now two of them together, they're gonna be something special.
Yeah, and Doc Rivers is one of the best coaches for that reason. It is of course no coincidence that Kawhi is resting and Paul George is coming back. And we look at what Paul George did last year with the Thunder and the numbers he was putting up. Everyone was saying it's his best season he's had. Even pre-injury, it's the best Paul George he's seen. But here we have in 2 games, as you mentioned, against the Hawks, he's finished with 37 points in the 20 minutes, and then against the Pelicans with 33 points in 24 minutes. And by the time this show airs Wednesday, we won't have, we'll see what he did against the Thunder, but it is a chance to get him going again. And something that everyone keeps criticizing for all these teams that now have 2 All-Stars, the Rockets with having Russell Westbrook and James Harden, the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi, the Lakers with AD and LeBron, is everyone has the question of how they're going to share the ball, how they're going to work together on offense, how can you have 2 scoring dominant guys play together. But these teams are showing just how. And the Clippers with Paul George back, we're going to get to see him and Kawhi play together against the Thunder and of course, moving forward. But these are the best players in the league for a reason. They want to win games. They're going to find ways to do it. And when you have a coach like Doc on top of that, it's a recipe for success. And for the Clippers that are, a little lower in standings in the West right now, it's still early, so you don't read too much into that. But, yeah, they'll definitely be a team that, without a doubt, is a top team in the league because you have a strong Paul George and Kawhi, and they can lead this team at any moment. But the Timberwolves are another team in the West. I mean, the Western Conference right now or I already knew it was going to be fun to watch. But, you look at the teams right now that are winning games. Of course, the Warriors are struggling. The Trailblazers maybe off to a little slower start is something that you and I talked about before the show. But the Timberwolves doing well already, sitting at the number 8 spot in the West currently. Of course, it's only November. But also there's the rumors of the trade for D'Angelo Russell later this season. And that was a team he was considering in his free agency. What's your takeaway on Minnesota so far as being a playoff team in the West as we get to the season?
It's funny though, Renee, and don't get me wrong, the West is powerful. Anytime you got LeBron on that side, but the East isn't to be played with either now. I mean,
no.
Think about this, Renee. You got Toronto, who's still a juggernaut. I don't care what anybody say. They're still strong. They was all due respect to Kawhi, but they were 17-5 when Kawhi did low man. 17-5. And then when he played, it's to the next level. But Toronto, you got Milwaukee, you got Philly, you got Boston. Boston's actually playing better than I thought they would be playing. Right?
They are.
So you have a good, and then Indiana's going to be strong too when they get Oladipo back. Even if they get him back in February, they're going to be strong. And Brogdon really hurt Milwaukee, but he's helping Indiana. So you got at least 4 or 5 teams on that side of the ledger that's going to be pretty decent. And when Detroit get all their pieces back, maybe something to be reckoned with. Going out west, back to Minnesota, I really think that Jimmy Butler lit a fire under them, but I think he served his purpose because had he still been there, somebody would have gotten hurt, and maybe Jimmy would have beat one of them, or Cat would have used his 6'10", 270 and crushed him. Who knows? But I think he may have lit a fire on them to where it got them stoked to think like, wait a minute, we are getting paid a lot of money to do what we need to do, and I think now Cat always did the numbers. And he's pretty much unstoppable, I think. But Wiggins is really that one that's really starting to play like he should be playing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Another
He's the one
to come into the league. But
yeah. He's the one that's playing like he should have been playing a long time ago, to where it's making a lot more sense. You know what I mean? To where I think $144 million. Now he's starting to play like he wants to earn that money. And with him playing at all-star level, that's going to make everybody else a lot better. Because like I said, Cat's going to do his numbers, and they got a nice young nucleus of first, second year players that are like 6'7", 6'7", that's athletic, can guard the perimeter, do a little bit of that. Jeff Teague is a very serviceable point guard. He may not be top right, but he's better than his brother. By the way, the Knicks would love to have Jeff Teague right about now. Okay, but now let's not Phoenix. Okay, let's not forget Phoenix. Some of the moves that they made to get Dario Saric and what they're doing out there in Phoenix, Booker coming into his own, and they're doing all this without DeAndre Ayton. You know what I mean? So, but to show you too, with true move, drafting smartly, and good coaching, you can do things the way you're supposed to do things. You know what I mean? And everything doesn't have to be, oh man, we missed that one. No, you can actually make it. I don't think Phoenix is a fluke. I think Phoenix is a very, very good team. As a matter of fact, they might be better than Dallas from 1 to 12. Even though you got Doncic and Porzingis, but I think they might be better than Dallas 1 to 12. And Dallas is a surprise team as well. You got them two bookends and Porzingis and Doncic. I mean, shoot, you got two players that are great. The only thing I think from the games that I've seen, the only thing I think needs to happen with the Porzingis situation is that he needs to get the ball more. And I don't mean just because of rebounds and putbacks and different things that nature. Feature him more. And I think sometimes, because you can look at the box scores and you see where Doncic may have put up 27 and Porzingis may have put up 15 and so forth, and they might have played maybe only 4 minutes less from each other. So I think Doncic's not a selfish player by no means. I mean, he's great right now at 19, 20. But I just think that if you really want to take that next step with the two of them, that he probably needs to get the ball a lot more.
Right. Well, look, this is what I know I love to see. Players like Andrew Wiggins, who, as we talk about those top draft picks coming into the league in 2014 as number 1 overall, it took him some time to really get going. We've seen glimpses of it. Doncic, Porzingis with Dallas. We're seeing them, as they're really getting into their own in their career. That's what makes these teams. I know everyone always talks about the Lakers, the Clippers, well, previously the Warriors, not anymore, the Rockets, that have the heavy hitters, the top guys in the league. But don't sleep on these younger guys. You talk about Trae Young over in Atlanta. This next generation of NBA players is definitely one to keep an eye on because they're changing the game too. So, yes, go ahead.
No, I'm good with you. And see what's happening too, Renee, and you're dead on point. They're watching what Steph did. See, everybody can't do it. I mean, we're not going to say LeBron and Steph are regular players, but
right, of course.
But it's easier to be 6'3" than it is to be 6'8" and 250. So, and the reason I'm saying is that you've seen a lot of these players shooting from the logo. You know what I mean? Half court, full jump shot, like Steph would do. Trae Young, for instance. Trae Young he's shorter than this, but he's a carbon copy of him. Now, and the thing I love about Trae is that even though he may put up a lot of shots, he's getting assists as well. So he's getting his guys in places, and he's doing certain things. So you have a lot of people that have looked at what Steph has done as a point guard extraordinaire, and they're emulating that more so than they're emulating, say, somebody like Kyrie, who's more of a dribble, shoot. You know what I mean?
Dribbling out the ball, shoot.
Right. Where Steph is more of a willing passer, and people don't realize it. So you look at these guys that are game games like Trae Young, the Ja Morant, and these guys that can put up buckets, but put you in a place where you can get the ball. Like Ja Morant, I'm gonna tell you something, Renee. Not now, but he stays healthy. God bless him. He stays healthy, and so maybe just a little more weight. But that'll happen just as he grows older. His court vision is like Jason Kidd. I really think that his court vision is
that's a good comparison.
And he can pass adroitly with both hands. I mean, literally, he can pass with both hands quickly and fluently. And he can jump. Now, and think about it. When he runs off the break, he can jump off the wrong foot and finish.
Right.
Which is hard to do. I mean, it's hard to jump off the wrong foot and do anything. But he can jump off the wrong foot and finish. So he has like freakish ambidextric ability, and he doesn't back down from anybody. He goes at it. So this point guard situation right now is going to be absolutely monstrous. And this is where the Knicks. And we talked about this a little off the air. The Knicks right now are pointless, man. They are in a situation where if Dennis Smith doesn't learn how to play basketball again, this trade. I mean, this trade still is still incomplete because the Dallas Mavericks still gave him 2 first-round picks plus the Knicks have their own. So I'm not going to say the trade was a bust, but Dennis Smith Jr. really has got to learn how to play basketball again because he's the centerpiece of that trade. And these young guys, Ja Morant and Trae Youngs of the world, they're coming in scoring, but they're still putting guys in place. Doncic is really a point guard. He's just LeBron like in his size, but he's a point guard. Like, that's why they actually got rid of Dennis Smith Jr. because he was in Doncic's way, or Doncic was in his way. But he's really a point guard. He's a volume shooter. He can put everybody in place.
Right. Well, it's a lot of growth that we're seeing, and it's fun to watch. And Jerry, I thank you for coming on the show this week to shine light and discuss what we've seen from the NBA so far, from the rookies to second-year guys that are turning the corner, the next generation, and so much more. So where can our listeners follow you to keep along with your sports coverage and all that you're doing?
Well, I'm with puresportsnewyork.com. Everything from Facebook to LinkedIn, Instagram, and it's Jerald with a J, Jerald. As you mentioned, I'm a best-selling author, so I have a series out called the Hero Book Series, which is a series of 4 books. The first 3 are out now. Book 4 will be coming soon. And my website for that is theherobookseries.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for joining us this week on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. It has been a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to having you on again in the future.